I'm going to tell you something that's going to make the hairs on your arms stand up. I'm going to tell you about the job that's going to make me lose my mind. I work the night shift at Ozark Medical Center's morgue. It's in Cherokee, Arkansas, and the building is old. I mean old. The kind of old where the walls creak and groan like they're trying to tell you something. And the things they've buried in those walls, well, let's just say they're not all gone. There are rules here. Rules I have to follow, no matter what. Rules they never told me about in training. Like, you can't ever look at the ceiling of the main prep room when the lights flicker. And I'm not supposed to be talking to you about this, but I have to. Because last night, the lights didn't just flicker. They went out completely. And I heard something in the dark. A low, wet cough coming from a body that was supposed to be completely, utterly, and finally dead. I don't know what it was, but I know what's coming next. And if I don't tell you this now, you might never know what really happened here. The Ozark Medical Center morgue isn't a place of quiet reverence. It's a place of fluorescent hum and the faint, coppery smell of formaldehyde. It's a place where the air is always chilled, not by a normal air conditioning unit, but by a deeper, more profound cold that seems to seep up from the very concrete floor. I've been a morgue attendant here for 6 months now. My name is Sam, and my nights are a series of slow, methodical tasks. Cataloging the deceased, preparing them for autopsy or burial. The work itself isn't what gets to me. It's the building. The morgue is in the basement of the hospital, and it's a labyrinth of concrete corridors and heavy steel doors. The old part of the building, they say, was built on an old Cherokee burial ground. They laugh when they say it, but the way their eyes dart around when they do, you know they don't really believe it's a joke. I work alone most nights, and the silence is a physical thing, a weight pressing down on you until the faintest sound becomes a gunshot in the dark. My first few weeks were uneventful. I was still in the honeymoon phase with the job, learning the ropes, getting to know the equipment, the rhythms of the place. The main prep room is where I spend most of my time. It's a sterile, white room with 2 stainless steel autopsy tables. In the center, the walls are lined with refrigerated cabinets, each one holding a body on a gurney. It's a grim reality, but it's a job. I got used to the cold, to the smell, to the sight of still bodies wrapped in white sheets. But I never got used to the sounds. The building is old, and it settles, so there are constant creaks and groans. I've gotten used to those too. But then there are the other sounds. The ones that don't sound like wood and steel. The ones that sound like something else. One night, about a month into the job, I was filling out a new intake form for a John Doe. He was an older man, a transient, who had passed away in his sleep on a park bench. Nothing unusual. As I was typing, I heard a sound from one of the refrigerated cabinets. It was a faint, metallic clink. I froze, my fingers suspended over the keyboard. I told myself it was the cold, the expansion and contraction of the metal. I kept typing, trying to ignore it. A few minutes later, I heard it again. Clink. This time it was followed by a faint, rustling sound, like paper being shuffled. I stood up and walked over to the cabinet. I checked the number on the door, 17. The John Doe was in cabinet 12. I stood there for a long time, my hand on the cold steel of cabinet 17, listening. But there was nothing. I went back to my desk, my heart thumping a little faster than usual. And I chalked it up to nerves and a late-night imagination. That was the first time. It happened again a week later. I was in the small office, filling out paperwork, when I heard a soft, whispering sound coming from the main prep room. It sounded like someone was whispering my name. Sam. It was just a breath of a sound, but I heard it. I walked into the prep room, my flashlight in hand. The room was empty, the bodies all neatly tucked away in their cabinets. The air was still and cold, and the only sound was the low, steady hum of the refrigeration units. I swept the beam of my flashlight around the room, but there was nothing. I was about to go back to my office when I noticed something on one of the autopsy tables. A single, fresh daisy was lying in the center of the table. There was no way it could have gotten there on its own. I walked over and picked it up. The petals were a pristine white, the stem a vibrant green. It was beautiful, but it was out of place. I threw it in the trash and went back to my office, my mind racing. Who had left it there? And how? The doors were all locked, and I was the only one on this floor. I tried to rationalize it, to tell myself that maybe a day shift attendant had left it, but that didn't make any sense. No one leaves a single flower in a morgue. It was a message, but I didn't know what it meant. The whispers continued. And the noises, the faint, rustling sounds from the cabinets, the distant, shuffling footsteps that I could never quite pinpoint. I started to notice other things, too. A strange red stain on the floor that wasn't there before. The faint scent of stale cigarette smoke, even though no one smoked in the building. I started to feel like I was being watched. The hairs on my neck would stand up, and I would turn around to find nothing there. I started to get paranoid. I would check the locks on the doors 3 or 4 times before I left for the night. I would sleep with the lights on. I tried to talk to my supervisor, a man named Mr. Henderson, about it. He just laughed and told me to get a grip. "The morgue is a creepy place, Sam," he said. "You just gotta get used to it." But I knew it was more than just creepy. It was wrong. It felt wrong in a fundamental way. The air was heavy with a presence that wasn't human. It was a presence that felt ancient, and it was watching me, waiting for me to make a mistake. One night, as I was leaving, I was walking down the long, concrete corridor that leads to the main stairwell. The lights were flickering again, casting long, dancing shadows on the walls. I was almost to the stairwell when I heard a sound from behind me, a low, guttural growl that seemed to come from the very walls themselves. I froze, my hand on the doorknob. I looked behind me, but the corridor was empty, the shadows twisting and writhing in the flickering light. I told myself it was my imagination, that it was the wind or the old pipes. But I knew it wasn't. It was a warning that I was getting too close to something I shouldn't be. And that's when I started to notice them. The rules. The unwritten, unspoken rules that were supposed to keep me safe. I didn't know what they were at first, but I knew I had to follow them. Because if I didn't, I had a feeling I was going to find out what really happens when the dead don't stay dead. It was a Tuesday night, about 2 months into my job, when I found the list. I was in the supply closet, looking for some fresh gauze, when I noticed a small, folded piece of paper tucked behind a stack of old body bags. I pulled it out and unfolded it. It was a sheet of yellowing, lined paper, and the handwriting was a shaky, spidery scrawl. It looked like it had been written a long time ago. The title at the top read, "The Rules of the Ozark Morgue." My heart hammered in my chest as I read the first one. Rule 1. Never look directly into room 6 after midnight. I had no idea what room 6 was. The morgue had a few small rooms, but none of them were numbered. I decided to ignore it. It was probably just some morbid prank left by a former employee. I crumpled the paper and threw it in the trash. But something in my gut told me not to. I fished it out of the trash and smoothed it out. I read the rest of the list. The rules got progressively weirder and more unsettling. I couldn't shake the feeling that they were real, that they were meant to be followed. Rule 2. At precisely 3 a.m., go to the main prep room. Go to cabinet 17. The door will be slightly ajar. Close it firmly, but never, ever look inside. You must never look inside. I shuddered. Cabinet 17. The same one I heard the metallic clink from. I thought back to the sound, the rustling. It all made a terrible kind of sense. The person who wrote this list wasn't trying to scare me. They were trying to warn me. I read on. Rule 3. You will hear a lullaby coming from the staff break room. It will sound like a child singing. Do not go in. Do not investigate. Just stay in the main prep room until the singing stops. It will stop on its own. You must never go in. You must never see who is singing. This was getting more and more ridiculous, and yet, a part of me felt a cold, deep sense of dread. The rules were like a puzzle, a twisted, terrifying puzzle that I was now a part of. The next rule was even more specific. Rule 4. There is a flickering fluorescent light above autopsy table 1. If it flickers 3 times, do not look up. Turn your back to it and count to 100. Do not count aloud. Count silently. If you make a sound, it will know you're there, and it will not let you go. I thought back to the flickering lights, the dancing shadows. I had always dismissed it as old wiring. But what if it wasn't? What if it was a signal? A signal that something was watching. Something that wanted to be seen. Rule 5. The smell of lilies and fresh earth is a bad sign. If you smell it, find a place to hide. The old boiler room is the safest. Do not speak. Do not make a sound. Wait for the smell to fade. It will pass. It will not find you if it cannot hear you. Lilies and fresh earth. A strange combination. It sounded like something out of a graveyard. A graveyard that was now in my workplace. The list continued, each rule adding another layer of terror to my nightly routine. Rule 6. The whispers you hear are not from the dead. They are from the one who watches. They will tell you things. They will tell you to open a cabinet or to go into a room you shouldn't. You must not listen. You must not believe them. They are lies. Do not let them get to you. The whispers. They were real. I wasn't going crazy. But what was the one who watches? And what did it want? I kept reading, my hands shaking. Rule 7. You will see a faint red glow seeping from under the door to the office. Do not open the door. Do not peek. Do not even look at the door for too long. If you do, the glow will get brighter. And then it will get closer. I thought about the strange red stain I had seen on the floor. Was that a remnant of someone who had broken this rule? The thought made my blood run cold. Rule 8. Sometimes, a body that has been prepped and placed in a cabinet will have its eyes open. Do not close them. Do not touch them. Just leave them as they are. If you touch them, they will open wider. And they will see you. And they will not be alone. I had seen bodies with their eyes open. I had always closed them, out of a sense of respect, out of a need to make them look peaceful. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. I had broken a rule. I had broken a rule without even knowing it. What had I done? What had I let in? Rule 9. The faint smell of stale cigarette smoke is the smell of a former attendant. He tried to break the rules. He is still here. He is a warning. Do not speak to him. He will try to talk to you. He will try to trick you. Do not listen. He will lead you to the one who watches, the cigarette smell. It wasn't my imagination. It was a ghost. A ghost who was trying to get me to break the rules. The last 2 rules were the strangest and most terrifying. Rule 10. The thing in the attic is a guardian. It is a protector. It is the one who keeps the others away. You must not disturb it. You must not make it angry. It is fragile and it is old. Its song is a whisper in the wind. You must not stop its song. An attic? I didn't even know the morgue had an attic. And a guardian? A protector? This was all getting too much. I was about to crumple the paper and throw it away again when I read the last rule. Rule 11. The coughing. If you hear a low, wet cough from a cabinet, you must not open it. Do not investigate. Do not try to help. You must leave the building immediately. Go to the nearest safe place. Do not return until the sun rises. The one who coughs is not one of the dead. It is the one who is hungry. And it knows your name. I read that last rule, and a cold dread seeped into my bones. The low, wet cough I had heard last night. It wasn't my imagination. It was real. I had broken a rule without even knowing it. I had stayed. I had stayed in the morgue, and now, the one who was hungry knew my name. I felt a terrible sense of finality as I folded the paper and tucked it into my pocket. I knew I couldn't leave. I had a job to do. I had bills to pay. But now, my job wasn't just about a paycheck. It was about survival. It was about following the rules. And I had a feeling that I was going to break them all. The first rule I broke was the one about the eyes. The first time I saw a body with its eyes open, I didn't think anything of it. It was a young woman, a victim of a car crash. Her eyes were a pale blue, and they stared blankly at the ceiling. I felt a pang of sympathy, a need to make her look peaceful, so I gently closed her eyelids. Nothing happened. The air didn't get colder, the lights didn't flicker. I just went on with my work. A few days later, I saw her again. Her eyes were open again, and this time, they were wider. They were staring directly at me, a blank, empty stare that seemed to see right through me. I felt a cold dread wash over me. I tried to close them again, but they wouldn't budge. It was like they were glued open. I felt a chill run down my spine. The body was cold, but the eyes felt different. They felt alive. I hurried through my work, not daring to look at her again. When I left for the night, I felt her eyes on my back all the way to the stairwell. The next night, I was working late, processing a new arrival. I heard a faint, high-pitched giggle coming from the staff break room. It was the lullaby, the one from the rules list. I froze, my hands shaking. I remembered the rule: do not go in, do not investigate, just stay in the main prep room until the singing stops. I stood still, listening to the soft, childlike voice singing a nursery rhyme. It was a sweet, innocent sound, but it was so out of place, so wrong, that it made my skin crawl. The singing went on for what felt like an eternity. I wanted to run, to hide, but I knew I couldn't. I had to stay in the main prep room. I stood there, listening, my heart pounding in my chest. The singing finally stopped, and the silence that followed was even more terrifying. The air felt thick, heavy with an unseen presence. I finished my work and left, not daring to look at the break room door. A week later, I broke another rule. It was a particularly quiet night, and I was feeling brave. Or maybe just stupid. I was in the main prep room, and the clock on the wall read 2:59 a.m. I remembered the rule about cabinet 17. The door would be slightly ajar, and I had to close it. I walked over to the cabinet, my heart pounding in my chest. Sure enough, the door was ajar, a small, dark slit in the cold steel. I reached out to close it, but my hand hesitated. I was so close to seeing what was inside. Curiosity got the better of me. I told myself it was just a body, just a corpse. What could it hurt to take a quick peek? I gently pulled the door open a little more. The inside was dark, and I couldn't see anything. I pulled it open a little wider, and then I saw it. A pair of pale, milky white eyes stared back at me from the darkness. They weren't attached to a body. They were just there, floating in the darkness. They were wide and unblinking, and they seemed to see into my very soul. I slammed the door shut, my hand shaking uncontrollably. I leaned against the cold steel of the cabinet, trying to catch my breath. The eyes were still there, in my mind's eye, staring at me. I had seen them. I had seen what was inside. And now, I had to deal with the consequences. The next night, I was back in the morgue, more paranoid than ever. The clock on the wall read 1 a.m. I was filling out a form when I heard a faint, whispering sound. It was the one who watches. It was whispering my name. Sam. It was a soft, sibilant sound coming from all around me. I tried to ignore it, to focus on my work. But the whispers got louder, more insistent. Open the cabinet, Sam, it hissed. Open cabinet 17. I'm lonely. I froze, my hands shaking. I remembered the rule. Do not listen. They are lies. I closed my eyes and put my hands over my ears. The whispers got louder, more furious. You opened it once, Sam. You can do it again. Just open it. Let me out. Let me out, Sam. The voice was so close, it felt like it was right next to my ear. I squeezed my eyes shut, repeating to myself, it's a lie. It's a lie. It's a lie. The whispers finally faded, and the silence returned. I felt a cold sweat on my brow. I had listened, but I hadn't acted. I had resisted. But for how long could I keep resisting? That night, I was leaving for home when I saw it. A faint red glow seeping from under the door to the office. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. I remembered the rule. Do not open the door. Do not peek. Do not even look at the door for too long. I turned my back to the door and walked quickly to the stairwell, not daring to look back. But as I walked, I could feel the glow getting brighter. I could feel the heat on my back. I could feel it getting closer. I ran up the stairs, my heart pounding in my chest, and didn't stop until I was out of the building. I got in my car and sped away, not daring to look in my rearview mirror. But I knew it was there. I knew it was watching me. And I knew it was waiting for me to come back. The rules were real. The consequences were real. And I was in over my head. I was a puppet, on a string, and the one who watches was the puppet master. I just hoped I could make it through the night. The night I broke the biggest rule was the night I lost everything. I had been working at the morgue for a little over a year now. The rules had become a part of my daily routine. I closed cabinet 17 every night at 3 a.m. I ignored the lullabies. From the break room, I turned my back on the flickering lights. I had even started to get used to the faint smell of cigarette smoke and the sight of a lone, ghostly figure in the reflection of a steel cabinet. The rules were working. I was surviving. I was getting complacent. And that's when it got me. It started with a whisper. A different kind of whisper. Not from the one who watches. This was a soft, pleading whisper, a voice that sounded like a desperate child. It was coming from the attic. I had forgotten all about the attic. The one that was home to the guardian. The one whose song I wasn't supposed to stop. Help me, the voice whispered. I'm scared. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. I remembered the rule. The thing in the attic is a guardian. It is a protector. It is the one who keeps the others away. I was supposed to let it be. But the voice, it sounded so real. So desperate. I was a morgue attendant. I dealt with death every day. I was supposed to be numb to it all. But I wasn't numb to a child's cry. I went to the utility closet and found a key labeled attic. I unlocked the heavy steel door, and a narrow, dusty staircase led up into the darkness. I hesitated, my hand on the cold steel of the door. The whispers from the attic got louder, more frantic. Please help me. I can't keep them away. The words were broken, choked with fear. I had to go. I had to help. I couldn't just leave a child to suffer. I climbed the stairs, the old wood groaning under my weight. At the top of the stairs, I found a small, dusty room. The air was thick with the smell of old wood and dust. The room was empty, save for a small, wooden rocking horse in the center of the floor. It was rocking back and forth, slowly, rhythmically. The whispers were coming from the rocking horse. They're coming for me. The hungry one, it's coming. The rocking horse was rocking faster now, a low, creaking sound filling the room. It was the guardian, the protector, and it was scared. Suddenly, I heard it. A low, wet cough coming from the morgue below. It was the hungry one, the one who knew my name, the one whose cough was a signal to run. I had to do something. I had to stop the cough. I had to help the guardian. I looked at the rocking horse. It was rocking violently now, it's creaking a high-pitched shriek. I reached out and grabbed the rocking horse, holding it still. The rocking stopped. The creaking stopped. And the silence that followed was deafening. I had stopped the song. I had broken the last and most important rule. And in the silence, I heard the cough again. It was closer this time. It was coming from the stairs that I looked at the rocking horse. And as I watched, its painted eyes began to glow. A faint, red glow, just like the one under the office door. The glow intensified, and the horse began to shake. The wood splintered and cracked, and a thin, white vapor seeped out from the cracks. The vapor twisted and turned, forming a hazy, indistinct shape in the air. The shape of a child. It was the guardian, but it wasn't a child. It was a small, frail creature with long, spidery limbs and a face that was just a dark, empty void. It looked at me, and a low, guttural growl rumbled from its chest. It wasn't a protector. It was a keeper. It wasn't keeping the others away. It was keeping them in. And by stopping its song, I had let them out. I heard the footsteps then. Heavy, dragging footsteps coming up the stairs. The red glow from the guardian's eyes intensified, filling the small room with a sickening, crimson light. The door to the attic slammed shut, and I heard the lock click. I was trapped. I backed away from the guardian, my back hitting the cold, rough wall. The footsteps reached the top of the stairs, and I heard the door groan as something tried to push its way through. "Sam," a voice hissed. It was the one who watches. It was the whispers, the lies. The voice was coming from the other side of the door. The guardian was no longer a threat. It was a victim, a prisoner, just like me. The door burst open, and a figure stood in the doorway. It was a man, thin and gaunt, his face a mask of pale, rotting skin. His eyes were milky white, just like the ones from Cabinet 17. He was wearing an old-fashioned morgue attendant's uniform, and he was holding a bloody knife in his hand. It was the former attendant, the one who smelled of stale cigarette smoke. He wasn't a warning. He was a trap. He stepped into the room, and the red glow from the guardian's eyes illuminated his face. A face twisted into a grotesque, smiling sneer. "You should have listened to the rules, Sam," he said, his voice a low, wet gurgle. "You should have never stopped the song. The rocking horse, the guardian, the child's whispers, it had all been a lie. A lure. A trap to get me to break. The rules." The man raised the knife, and in that moment, I understood everything. The flickering lights, the whispers, the red glow, the coughing. They weren't just random, spooky events. They were a carefully orchestrated trap. A game. A game played by the dead, by the ones who weren't really dead. I was just the latest player, and I had lost. The last thing I saw was the glint of the knife in the red light, and the last thing I heard was the faint, wet cough coming from the morgue below. It wasn't the sound of the hungry one. It was the sound of the one who had finally eaten. I never did make it out of the Ozark Medical Center morgue. The next morning, the day shift attendant found my body on the floor of the attic, my eyes wide open, staring blankly at the splintered rocking horse. And just like the young woman from the car crash, they couldn't get my eyes to close. I'm still here, I think. I can still smell the formaldehyde and the lilies. I can still hear the whispers and the coughs. And sometimes, late at night, when the lights are flickering and the air is cold, I can still smell the stale cigarette smoke. I'm a warning now. A ghost in the machine. A prisoner of the morgue. And if you're ever in Cherokee, Arkansas, and you hear the whispers coming from the morgue, don't listen. Just keep walking. Because if you stop, you might be the next one to play the game. And you might be the next one to find out what really happens when the dead don't stay dead. I never did make it out of the Ozark Medical Center morgue. The next morning, the day shift attendant found my body on the floor of the attic, my eyes wide open, staring blankly at the splintered rocking horse. And just like the young woman from the car crash, they couldn't get my eyes to close. I'm still here, I think. I can still smell the formaldehyde and the lilies. I can still hear the whispers and the coughs. And sometimes, late at night, when the lights are flickering and the air is cold, I can still smell the stale cigarette smoke. I'm a warning now. A ghost in the machine. A prisoner of the morgue. And if you're ever in Cherokee, Arkansas, and you hear the whispers coming from the morgue, don't listen. Just keep walking. Because if you stop, you might be the next one to play the game. And you might be the next one to find out what really happens when the dead don't stay dead.